It was a typical night, nothing out of the ordinary. I was binge-watching some random show, trying to kill time. The house was quiet, except for the sound of the TV. But suddenly, I felt this weird feeling like I was being watched. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, I glanced out the window and saw him, a man lurking around outside my house. He looked shifty, like he had something to hide. And trust me, I've seen enough crime dramas to know a suspicious character when I see one. He wasn't doing anything particularly creepy, just pacing back and forth. But the way he kept looking towards my house made my heart race. I couldn't shake off the feeling that he had some sinister motive. I mean, why else would he be skulking around my neighborhood late at night? I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe he was lost or looking for someone else's house. But deep down, I knew something was off. I decided to call the police just to be safe. I didn't want to take any chances with this guy. As I waited for the police to arrive, my mind started racing with all sorts of thoughts. What if he was a burglar, waiting for the perfect moment to break in? Or worse, what if he had harmed someone already and was now targeting me? The possibilities were terrifying, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of impending danger. Time seemed to crawl by as I anxiously watched the man from my window. He kept lurking, not seeming to notice my growing unease. It was as if he enjoyed the fear he was instilling in me. The minutes turned into hours, and the whole ordeal felt like an eternity. Finally, the police showed up, sirens blaring and lights flashing. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for their prompt response. They approached the man cautiously, and I watched from a safe distance, my heart pounding in my chest. They questioned him, and he gave them some excuse about being lost. But I wasn't buying it. There was something about his demeanor, the way he avoided eye contact, that screamed guilty. The police, however, couldn't find any evidence to hold him, so they let him go. That didn't sit right with me. It felt like justice had slipped through my fingers. From that night on, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind outside, made my skin crawl. I installed extra locks on all my doors and windows, hoping to keep the fear at bay. But deep down, I knew the truth. I would never feel completely safe in my own home again. I live in a quiet neighborhood, and one night, when my family went to visit our relatives, I found myself home alone. Now, I've always enjoyed the solitude, but little did I know that this night would be different. It was around midnight when I settled down on the couch, watching some mindless TV shows to pass the time. The house was eerily quiet, and the only source of light was the flickering glow from the television. That's when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head to look out the window, and my heart skipped a beat. There, standing just beyond the edge of my yard, was a stranger. The sight sent shivers down my spine. This guy was tall and wore a dark hoodie with the hood pulled up, obscuring most of his face. I couldn't see any details, but his presence alone made me uneasy. Trying to shake off the unease, I convinced myself that it was probably just a lost neighbor or someone passing by. I mean, there could be a reasonable explanation, right? But as minutes turned into hours, the stranger remained rooted in place, casting an ominous shadow under the dim streetlight. Fear began to creep into my mind, and my imagination started to run wild. Why would someone just stand there, staring at my house? Was he waiting for an opportunity to break in or harm me? I didn't want to call the police right away, as I didn't want to overreact or waste their time on a hunch. Instead, I decided to stay vigilant, peeking through the curtains every few minutes to check if the stranger was still there. And he was. Time seemed to stand still, and I felt trapped in this terrifying game of cat and mouse. The suspense built up as the night grew darker and the stranger showed no signs of leaving. Every creaking floorboard and gust of wind outside made my heart race. I couldn't help but wonder if this was some sick prank, or if I had unintentionally attracted the attention of a dangerous individual. The minutes turned into hours, and I began to question my own sanity. Was I just imagining things? Was this all in my head? But every time I glanced outside, that dark figure would be there, unmoving and unrelenting. It wasn't until the first rays of sunlight began to illuminate the sky that the stranger finally disappeared. As if melting into thin air, he was gone, leaving behind only a haunting memory. I couldn't explain it, and even to this day, I'm left wondering who that person was and why they chose to stand outside my house. This experience has left me shaken to my core. I've learned never to take my safety for granted and to trust my instincts when something feels off. It's a chilling reminder that danger can lurk just beyond our doorstep, and sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that happen in real life. So, there you have it. My heart-pounding encounter with a mysterious stranger outside my house. I hope sharing this story serves as a cautionary tale for others to stay vigilant and keep their homes secure. I've been staying home alone lately, while my family went to visit some relatives. It was just me, my dog, and the quiet house. I never thought something this shocking would happen to me, but here's what went down. It was around 10 p.m. and I was chilling in my living room, watching some random videos on YouTube. Suddenly, there was a knock on the front door. Now, I don't get many visitors, especially at this hour. I felt a bit uneasy, but I didn't want to ignore it in case someone genuinely needed help. I slowly made my way to the front door, my heart racing. When I opened it, I saw a young guy standing there. He looked exhausted, almost desperate. His clothes were dirty and torn, like he had been through something rough. He asked for my help, and there was something about his eyes that made me want to trust him. He told me that he was being chased by someone and needed a place to hide for a while. He pleaded with me not to involve the police, saying they were somehow connected to the people after him. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do, but his fear was so palpable, and I couldn't just leave him out there alone. So, I let him in, thinking maybe I could help him figure things out. Little did I know what I was getting myself into. As soon as I closed the door, I could feel the tension in the air. The guy was on edge, constantly looking out the window as if expecting someone to show up any second. I tried to calm him down, asking him to explain what was going on. He shared a shocking story with me. It turns out he had stumbled upon something he shouldn't have. He found out about a secret organization involved in some shady dealings. They were after him because he had seen something that could bring them down. I was speechless. Spias. The guy went on, explaining how they had been tracking him for days. He showed me a scar on his arm, a mark of the encounter he had barely escaped. The more he spoke, the more convinced I became that this wasn't just some made-up tale. We spent the entire night on high alert, listening for any suspicious sounds. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind outside made us jump. I couldn't help but feel like I was a character in a movie, but this was real life, and my heart was racing like never before. At one point, we heard footsteps approaching the house. Panic surged through me as we scrambled to find a hiding spot. We ended up hiding in the attic, where we stayed huddled together in the darkness, waiting for the danger to pass. Hours felt like days as we sat there, whispering nervously and praying that we wouldn't be found. Eventually, the footsteps faded away, leaving us with a mix of relief and paranoia. It felt like they were always watching, lurking just out of sight. Morning finally came, and the guy decided it was time to leave. He thanked me for my help and warned me to stay vigilant. He told me that they might come back for him, and if they did, I should be prepared. As I watched him disappear into the distance, I couldn't help but wonder if I had made the right choice. My mind was filled with questions, doubts, and a lingering fear. The whole experience had left me shaken to the core. So, that's the story of the night I'll never forget.